Testimony continues on day 3 of the trial of former Oshkosh West student Grant Fuhrman. Now 20 years old, Fuhrman is charged with attempted first-degree intentional homicide, accused of stabbing school resource officer Mike Wissink in 2019. Emily Beyer joins us live from the Winnebago County Courthouse in Oshkosh after multiple witnesses took the stand for the prosecution today. Emily.
Yeah, Brittany, today the state wanted to focus on the evidence. The defense in cross-examination wanted to highlight how it was collected and handled. An officer on the stand today saying that the scene was chaotic that day and that it was not a perfectly preserved crime scene. Now, one example of that was an officer had asked for a pair of scissors to cut off Fuhrman's clothing to see his wounds. Scissors were taken from Officer Wissink's office, but when they didn't work, the officer said he tossed them back into Officer Wissink's office. The state sharing some police body camera video, so we saw in court just how chaotic the scene was. The defense later asking about alleged mishandling of evidence at the scene and proper procedures. Another officer taking the stand who knew Fuhrman before this incident. He had coached him in football when he was younger. The officer was in the hospital with Fuhrman and told the jury Fuhrman made comments about how he didn't know what got into him and that he liked Officer Wissink. The defense asking in cross if he thought Fuhrman wanted to hurt himself.
Did it occur to you when Grant made those comments that there may be a suicide by cop situation happening that may have occurred in the room?
I had no idea, and I wasn't trying to draw any conclusions as to what took place.
And now that same officer, Sergeant Brett Robertson, was the one who rendered aid after Fuhrman was shot. The defense adding that Fuhrman wanted to thank him for helping him. We then also heard Fuhrman in court thanking that officer. Reporting live in Oshkosh, Emily Beyer, Action 2 News.